Hey friends, Ash here with Gents. Hope you're doing well. Today I've got 10 cheap alternatives to more expensive, really popular scents. Now when I say more expensive fragrances, I don't mean just straight up niche. We've got some designer ones in here too, more expensive designer fragrances and niche fragrances. And the alternatives are not all just clones. So if you want to find some cheap alternatives to really popular, costly scents, stay with me because that's what we're going to check out. Let's jump into it. We're going to kick it off with the most obvious one right off the bat. We're just going to get it done, get it out of the way. It's Creed Aventus. Kind of have to cover this one, I feel like. Not that long ago, I did a video like top 5 best Creed Aventus clones. So if you want to go over the clone alternatives to this, feel free to check that video out on the channel. But for this video, the best alternative for Aventus is going to be Mont Blanc Explorer. Now, when this first came out, it wasn't as good of an alternative because you had to pay full retail. But now that it's at discounters, it's cheap. Mont Blanc Explorer is quite similar to Aventus, even down to the coloration in the bottle here and the design with this kind of leather wrap. It's got bergamot instead of pineapple, though bergamot is also used in Creed's Aventus, and in Explorer it does give you a little bit of that pineapple-y feel. As it dries down, you've got ambroxan and akigala wood. Also got some fresh spiciness in here, most prominently pink pepper. Explorer is the best designer fragrance that's going to get you pretty close to how Creed Aventus smells. And as far as the versatility here, it's just like Creed Aventus. Basically anytime, anywhere, any place, it's going to work. So if you're looking for an Aventus alternative other than the many clones out there, Explorer. Now we're going to go to a designer scent that's a pretty costly one, all things considered. It's Bleu de Chanel. Now, when I say costly, it's mainly because Bleu de Chanel, like most Chanels, is close to impossible to find at a big time discount because Chanel really tightly controls where their fragrances go and who sells them. Now, if you wanted an alternative to Bleu de Chanel, you've got a few different options. You could go with Tag Home by Armaf. But frankly, I think Tag Home sucks. I don't think it's a very good clone. It's rough around the edges, really synthetic smelling. It's not that good. You could go with Perry Ellis for Men. I think that's what it's called. It's just kind of a square bottle with a circular glass opening in the middle, kind of a blue coloration. That one's not too bad. But the best bet, the best choice for a Bleu de Chanel alternative is Missoni Parfums pour Homme. Now this is a tester bottle, so it has no cap. If that's important to you, get the full presentation. And the full presentation does look a lot nicer because the cap is also magnetic, so it gives it this classy look to it. Instead, mine looks kind of dopey, but the fragrance itself, really good. It's got grapefruit, lavender, ginger, apple, and birch as some of the notes in the fragrance, and it has that freshness, that appeal that Bleu de Chanel Eau de Toilette has. And if you're familiar with Bleu de Chanel, as soon as you spray this on, you're going to be able to pick up that similarity. It's a great scent, huge versatility, huge compliment factor. The price at discounters is fantastic as well. Also, Missoni Wave. Really good as well for summer. All right, this next one is an alternative to both Pure Havane and to a lesser extent, Xerjoff Naxos. Now, for a time, Pure Havane wouldn't have been considered a more expensive fragrance, but as time has gone and this has been harder to get, the price has gone up and up and up. So as far as designers go, nowadays, Pure Havane, pretty expensive. And it's a bummer because this is one of the nicer pipe tobacco scents you're ever gonna find as far as designers go. So a great cheap alternative to that one. And also, like I said, to a lesser extent, Xerjoff Naxos, Insurrection 2 Wild from Ray and Tradition. It's gonna give you that tobacco, vanilla, honey, kind of spicy scent profile, just like Pure Havane. The bottle is pretty nice as well. I don't think it looks as good as Insurrection 2 Pure. I think the white looks a little better. This has kind of a like sickly brown coloration to it, but overall for a mega inexpensive clone, presentation's good. And if you've never smelled this, all you've ever done is heard of it, or maybe you've never even heard of it, and you go and look at the price of this fragrance, you would probably think that's gonna smell terrible. It's gonna have some of that roughness that I talked about earlier, that skank, that alcohol scent profile. But surprisingly, This one is very smooth and really well done. Back to a niche fragrance, it is Elysium Parfum Cologne from Raja Parfum. This is a really well-known blue fragrance, high-end blue fragrance, obviously, made for maximum versatility and mass appeal. Yeah, it's maybe a little more of a spring summertime scent, but like most blue fragrances, you can rock this year round. The cheap alternative to this fragrance is Hugo Reversed from Hugo Boss. Now, I'm gonna say straight up, I don't think that Hugo Reverse is all that close to Elysium, in the sense that I don't think it's necessarily, redundant to own one and the other. I think they have enough difference between the two. Hugo Reversed, obviously a much simpler fragrance. There's not as much going on here, but it will remind you a bit of what Elysium does. And there are things in Hugo Reversed that when you smell it, you'll be like, yeah, it's a little bit close to Elysium there. I see what they did. It's got grapefruit, bergamot, rosemary, and vetiver, so you know what you're in for. I mean, that's pretty much it. You've got citrus, a little bit of an aromatic feel, also very fresh, and some vetiver when it dries down. Hugo Reverse is a lot like Mont Blanc Explorer. When it came out at full retail, it's not really worth it. But at discounters, it goes for next to nothing, and at that price, it's great. And people do seem to gravitate toward it and seem to like it a lot too, so added bonus. Now something that's more my speed, more my style. Tom Ford Grey Vetiver. Now this being a Tom Ford, quite pricey, but you can get a vetiver fragrance that's gonna get you pretty close to Grey Vetiver at a much more affordable rate from a great house, and it's Guerlain Vetiver. Guerlain Vetiver has citrus, tobacco, of course vetiver, and spices as well. Now between the two, Grey Vetiver is going to be the more sparkly, the more clean vetiver. This one is heralded as one of the best, business fragrances, office fragrances that's ever been made. Guerlain Vetiver has a little bit more of a throwback style to it. It's got a lot more going on. You've got florals in here, spices, all this other stuff mingling together. It's not just vetiver, even though the name is just vetiver. But at its heart, Guerlain Vetiver and Tom Ford Grey Vetiver do share a lot of similarities, especially in the way that the vetiver note itself comes across. Hopping to another niche scent, Pardon from Nasomatto. The alternative to this is another Guerlain. It's Lidge, or L'Instant de Guerlain Extreme. Well, that's what this used to be. Anyway, this style of bottle, you can't find this anymore, but the fragrance still exists. Just looks like that. Yeah, good old L'Instant de Guerlain. It's got star anise, cacao, patchouli, and citrus. Really sexy fall and wintertime scent. It doesn't lean into that sweet side of things. Instead here it's dark, a little bit mysterious, but at the same time mature. It's like the fragrance for somebody who has a lot of money, but they don't need to necessarily flash it at you. Now, when I say it doesn't lean into the sweetness, it's not devoid of sweetness. It has that cacao, so it has this chocolatey kind of undertone, but it's not, that bubblegummy sharp sweetness where it's just in your face. Now we are on to one of the big boy niche fragrances. It's Layton from Parfums de Marly. Now, this is well known for being a Thanos level compliment destroyer. You snap your fingers and half the people around you give you compliments. Well, no, not exactly, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. It's a compliment beast. And it's also pricey. So the alternative to this one is going to be Detour Noir from Havane. Now, this bottle is horrific to look at. This thing is super ugly. It doesn't fit well in the hand at all. It feels cheap. Everything about it, frankly, is cheap when we're talking presentation. But this is, in spite of all those negatives, an amazing alternative to Parfums de Marly Layton at a fraction of the cost. You get that apple, you get that vanilla, you get that cardamom, you get that lavender, all of it in here. Even though the note breakdown might say something different, this is Layton. It's really close. If you can get past this horrifically disgusting presentation, what's on the inside here, which is what matters, is great. It's gonna get you so close to Layton at a much lower price. Next up, an alternative to another Tom Ford, this time Tobacco Vanille. one of the OG hits for Tom Ford. You know, one of those fragrances that really put the private blend on the map. And still to this day, it rocks. Alternative to this one, Amber Oud Tobacco, also from Havane. And that one, unfortunately, I don't have anymore. It is really close to Tobacco Vanille. It's gonna give you tobacco, vanilla, cinnamon, dried fruits. The quality is very good. One thing to look out for is to make sure you get the tobacco edition, because you got multiple versions of Amber Oud from Havane. So Amber Oud Tobacco Edition, that's gonna get you Tobacco Vanille. Next one we're gonna talk about is an alternative to By the Fireplace. This is part of the Replica line by Maison Martin Margiela. Really popular fragrance. Probably seen this at Sephora if you have one local to you. Alternative to that is this big old hunk of monstrosity. It's Amir Al Oud Intense Oud from Lattafa. Woods, vanilla, sugar, oud. Looking at that note breakdown, you would think, that doesn't really sound much like By the Fireplace. And yet, as Lattafa is often want to do, they have put out a presentation that just looks kind of bland with a name that's just kind of like, hey, here's oud, and then you smell it. Actually really well done. Now I will say with Amir Al Oud Intense that you need to let it settle for a second, and that's when it starts to smell like By the Fireplace. When you first spray it on, it has some similarities to other Lattafa fragrances, the way that they use oud notes. But then once it settles, great alternative to By the Fireplace. Awesome performance as well. Last but not least, an alternative to good old Valentino Uomo. Love this fragrance. Also kind of an alternative to Dior Homme to an extent. And it's from Zara. It's 9.0, or maybe you just call it Zara 9. Iris, cardamom, bergamot, and amber, some of the notes in the fragrance. This stuff is super cheap. I think at Zara's website, it's 20 bucks, something like that. And this one nowadays has a bit of a different presentation, as I understand it. There's like Zara 9 Classic on their website. And instead of having this kind of matte, almost rubbery feeling bottle, which frankly, I like a lot, it's clear now. And also says Classic. Now with Zara 9, it's the same kind of deal that you get with some of these cheaper fragrances from houses like Rayon Tradition or Lattafa, where you think, nah, at that price, I don't think they can really come very close to the fragrance they're trying to emulate. And then you smell it and you're just kind of shocked. Like, how did they do that? Like, how can you sell this for $20 and still make money? Because the cost per kilogram of this fragrance, for them to be able to sell it at the price they do and make money, has to be nothing. And then you smell it, and the iris actually smells good. It's just so well done, and I'm a sucker for iris. So that one, I think, if you like Dior Homme, if you like Valentino Uomo or Uomo Intense, Gentleman Eau de Parfum, fragrances like that, you should check this out. All right, friends, that's gonna do it. 10 cheap alternatives to more expensive popular scents. Thank you for hanging with me. Thank you for your support. Let me know some other sick alternatives to more expensive scents out there, and stay safe out there. See you tomorrow.